Okay, so here's part of lesson 27. So we've established that the Jansenists are being persecuted, and why, at least partly. Now we move on to the next phase, the revocation of the Edict of Nantes. Before we're talking about the Jansenists, persecution of a Catholic order. Now we're talking about persecution essentially of Protestants, the Huguenots. So there was hostility between the Catholics and Protestants that continued after the Edict of Nantes. In the 1660s, Huguenots only amount to about 10% of the population. Your book says 1.75 million people out of 18 million people, and their percentage of the population is declining. After Nijmegen, Louis XIV will launch a campaign against the Huguenots. Some believe that this might have been influenced by his mistress, who then secretly married him after his first wife died, Madame de Maintenon, who was a deeply pious Catholic. And here we see a picture of her. So what did Louis do here? He hounds Huguenots, forces them out of public office, and kicks them out of a lot of professional careers. He will use financial incentives to encourage conversion. And in 1681, he will quarter troops in Huguenot towns. Protestant churches and schools will be closed. Ministers will be exiled. And you thought those non-Anglicans had it bad with the 5 Mile Act in Britain. People who refused to convert, who were not members of the ministry, who were not clergy, sometimes would be forced to become galley slaves, and Protestant children were baptized as Catholics, whether their parents liked it or not. So these are the kinds of things he did. By the way, professional careers, that includes things like lawyers and doctors and even printers. Again, he's revoked the Edict of Nantes, and this is going to increase the international resistance to Louis XIV. 250,000 Protestants in France, many highly skilled, will leave, and that's not good for the French economy in the long term. And France will be associated with religious repression. Here we see a depiction of Louis XIV's signing of the revocation of the Edict of Nantes. Now those early wars that were fought, there's going to be wars later on. Remember, Louis XIV rules for a very long time. He becomes king at a very young age, and he's going to live a good long time. The League of Augsburg and the 9 Years' War is the first one to consider. In 1681, Louis XIV will occupy the free city of Strasbourg, and this will lead to the formation of what's called the League of Augsburg. England, Spain, Sweden, the United Provinces, and by that we're talking about the northern Netherlands, and the German states, various German states, including Brandenburg and Prussia, more than likely. In 1689 to 1697, the 9 Years' War is fought. This includes a struggle between the French and the English for control of North America. And what will finally decide this, they will have the Peace of Ryswick, and Holland will be secure, so Louis XIV doesn't get to jump in there and take that stuff over, and Louis is stopped in Germany. So his earlier wars, he was getting some things out of these wars. In this war, at least, he doesn't seem to get anything out of it at all, really. Another war is the War of the Spanish Succession. In 1700, Charles II of Spain dies, and he leaves Spain to Philip of Anjou, who is Louis XIV's grandson. Now this is going to freak out a lot of people, because the last thing that these other countries want is a united France and Spain. So in 1701, the Grand Alliance is formed. England, Holland, and the Holy Roman Empire. And what they want to do is oppose France. They want to prevent Philip of Anjou from becoming both Philip V of Spain and the latest Philip in France. So uh, they push hard in Flanders to maintain its neutrality, and the Habsburgs, of course, want some of their claims in Spain recognized. Louis XIV's response is to recognize, in reaction to all of this, recognize the Stuart claim in England. So James Edward Stuart, the old pretender, will come across and get beat by George I. But there you go. That's how politics are done in Europe. I hope you've been paying attention, because as you can see, it can move quite quickly, and sides can change very quickly as well. So in the War of the Spanish Succession, a comparison to France and English, the English might be useful, and especially because it's the comparison your textbook makes. France is unprepared for the war. It's underfunded, which is something kind of new in discussing Louis XIV's armies. It's poorly equipped, and the generals for his army are not particularly impressive. The English have advanced weapons, and they use superior tactics, smaller, more mobile units for movement, columns. And by 1709, even though France obviously has an advantage in size, they're essentially at a stalemate. So Louis XIV is forced to sign two pieces, two peace treaties, one in Utrecht with England in 1713, and one in Rastatt in 1714 with the Holy Roman Empire. Philip V remains King of Spain. There he is, pictured in the left. And England gets Gibraltar and Minorca, which is an island in the Mediterranean. The map over here in the slide, if you look to the right, you can see where Gibraltar is, a little tiny part of Spain right across from Africa, a very key point for basically controlling movements back and forth between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. And the Hanover line is recognized by Louis XIV as the proper line for kings in England. So France after Louis XIV, France will still be powerful, but less so in 1715 than it was in 1680. It will still have the largest population of any European country. It will have an advanced but troubled economy, and everybody, including France, in the continent, is drained by all these wars, at least financially. Now we move on to Louis XV. Louis XV is a boy king, so he needs a regent, and the Duke of Orleans is the regent, member of the royal family. And the problem is the Duke of Orleans is not a particularly savvy person when it comes to picking people to help run the kingdom, and he's a gambler, and as such he meets other gamblers like John Law. John Law is a Scottish mathematician, and he will be allowed to run the French economy. He believes an increased money supply will aid recovery. That would be inflation. So he establishes the Bank of Paris and prints a lot of money. He also organizes the Mississippi Company monopoly in the Louisiana Territory that is controlled by France. So trade in the New World is basically controlled by this Mississippi Company. He'll issue stock in the Mississippi Company in exchange for bonds. Now, bonds are, when people buy bonds, they're essentially loaning money to the government. So what he's doing is he's taking these loans that people have made to the government, the bonds, and he's giving them stock in exchange, and he's basically pretending that the stock is worth as much as the bonds would have been worth. And he encourages a great deal of speculation, and what happens is eventually some investors start taking their paper money and trying to basically have it reimbursed as gold. But the French economy doesn't have enough gold to back all the money, and by 1720, gold payments have to be halted, and John Law flees the country because the economy is all in a mess as a result of all of his manipulations of the economy. In the pictures you see above, you see the Duke of Orleans in the top picture, and in the bottom you see John Law. Here's a contemporary political cartoon of John Law from Het Groot Tafereel der Dwaasheid. I hope I said that right. In 1720, the text reads, Law loquitur, the wind is my treasure, cushion and foundation, master of the wind, I am master of life, and my wind monopoly becomes straightway the object of idolatry. Less rapidly turn the sails of the windmill on my head than the price of shares in my foolish enterprises. So, of course, you can tell political cartoons back then were done a little differently than they're done now. So, another misstep on the part of the Duke of Orleans. He's destabilized the economy by handing the economy over to a gambler, and now let's look at what he does to the monarchy's ability to exercise central authority. He's going to renew the authority of the Parlements. He's going to set up councils with nobles along with bureaucrats. This is going to weaken the monarchy. Nobles are unprepared at this point. They haven't been serving, so they don't have the experience they used to have. But they're going to continue to defend their privileges, and they're going to use the Parlements to limit monarchical power. The Duke of Orleans will continue his practice of weakening the monarchy by reinstituting the full power of the Parlement of Paris to allow or disallow laws. So Parlements will be able to get the support of public opinion, and they will come to be seen as more representative of the nation than the monarchy is. Not exactly a great plan if you're trying to keep the kingdom powerful under the rule of a king. And the last slide we have, Cardinal Fleury. He will come in as the new chief minister. He will work to maintain the authority of the monarchy. He will repress Jansenists, and he will pursue as his goal economic prosperity, and peace with other nations is part of that plan, kind of moving back to some older policies that were in place at an earlier time, and also some similarities with Sir Walpole over there in Britain, who's trying to keep the peace to save money.